Okay, here's the shop. I've got things parked in here right now that generally are not normally here. In fact, really, if anything is ever kind of parked in here, it's usually the OBS back there. It's a cool truck. We'll go over that a little bit. But so this is the Excursion, and it was almost a year ago. It's November now. It was it's actually November the 1st now. Back just before Christmas of last year, I hit ice going 57 miles an hour and went off the road, and what just did cosmetic damage to this. I mean, it ripped the step off of this side and, obviously chewed the doors up and everything. This thing was in beautiful, pristine condition. It bent both sides of the rear bumper. Of course, everything in the back is fine. I went into the trees was the main issue. And that's the biggest damage on the whole thing, believe it or not, is that right there. But there's really just nothing that's completely straight anymore on the whole vehicle. It broke everything up here in the front, obviously pushed this into the front. It didn't, I literally was able to drive it. It did bend two of the wheels. It had nice wheels and tires on it, which are right over here. And those are brand new tires. It bent two of those wheels. So it's got the stock 16-inch rims back on it and absolute garbage for tires. But I've actually driven this. And it's just been primarily a lot on dirt road and things, so it is dirty right now. That's all I've been driving it. I'm a fly fisherman, and I have 35 days up in the Rockies, in the local area here, where I will put maybe 80 miles a day on dirt roads in this thing, and that's primarily what it's been used for. So it is filthy, but this thing is absolutely cherry. So as I said, I had put like $5,000 into this motor in fall of last year. A year ago right now, the body was off the frame on this, and so it is now ARP studded. The only thing, as you can see, it's not deleted right now. We were kind of in the process of deleting that, but in a stock vehicle like that, in the shop that it was in, I just chose to leave the EGR alone. It's got a bulletproof EGR cooler in it that I put in there a long time ago. This has got 155,000, I think, on it, and I've had this since it had about 45,000 on it. So I put over 100,000 on this, and it's been a great vehicle. It did have high pressure oil system problems early on, and it was a leak right at the high pressure oil pump at the snap to connect fitting. That was all rectified. Bulletproof EGR was put in. Everything was done short of doing the ARP studs, because that would have been a body off, and it was already a lot of money, and it was going to be a lot more money to do that. So consequently, I just ran this thing completely stock. It has not had a tuner on it. It does now. It's Banks tuned now, but up until I finally blew a head gasket last fall, I just ran this thing completely stock, and so all of the major work has been done to it. This thing, I haven't even driven. I moved it in here yesterday, and that was the first time I've started it in a month. And it's a cold start now. And a 6.0, you know how long they take to crank to get the oil pressure up and everything. But this one just fires right up. And you will see this is a cold start. There's my gauges, absolutely cold start. Just let it cycle the glow plugs. The batteries are really weak. Absolutely cherry. So it's absolutely perfect platform. And it's got Banks tuner on it now. So like mechanically, it's all good to go. It does need the front leaf springs changed, which I'm getting ready to do, and I've got a bunch of parts over here right now. I've got a drag link here, I've got tie rod ends, I've got the front U-joints, and then of course, because that's going to be pulled apart, all the seals that kind of for like the vacuum actuated automatic hubs in the front. that's what's left to replace on the front of it, as far as the steering and everything goes, and then it just needs an alignment, and the whole vehicle is good to go. It's super, super clean. It's the Limited, so it's a leather interior, and of course this is all, again, this is dirty, but this is all going to be the interior inside the other truck. So I've got the Limited, and then the plan, as we'll start talking about here in a minute, is to be able to get all of this inside of that. So and that'll be up to and including everything that's up in the headliner, everything that this vehicle has, all of the airbags, everything, and the nice interior is all going to be in the other truck. And it is amazing how they fit together. So that's pretty much kind of the Excursion in a nutshell. And so moving on, I had pretty much a nationwide search going on for, and I didn't really care, 67 to 79, right? Bump side, dent side. I've now had both. This is my first dent side, but I've had a bump side. I had a 70 F100 that I loved. And these trucks have always just really appealed to me, and it's something about like that part of the truck right there, that front end, the way that it's just kind of slanted back like that. It just, I don't know why I've always just, and I had a friend that had a black one back in the day when these were new. He bought a new one, and he had it for years and years until the early 80s, which was a bad time for automobile history, I think you'd say. And he bought one of those little tiny Ford Ranger pickups and traded off the black, and his was a highboy. It was a single cab highboy, and I loved that truck, and I've always just, this has appealed to me. And then about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I saw where a guy had done one just in a crew cab like that, and it was very well done. The stance was just right. You know how it is. And it just did it for me, and I thought that would be so cool. And then I became aware of these body swaps like this, and I decided that was what I was going to do. And then the way that things have worked out for me to have that as the platform, and I love that vehicle, and I look forward to driving that vehicle more. Only it's going to look like that now. Pretty uncanny how they fit together. If you haven't kind of explored that, just look at body swaps. So again, the haters and things, I get it, but and there's going to be people that are going to have the opinions of, well, thank God you kept Ford with Ford. Well, I'll be honest with you. My first choice was not to do this. This just happened, and it's supposed to be. But I really was seriously looking at putting Cummins in one of these, and there's nothing wrong with that in my mind, right? So that was kind of at one point when I was kind of planning this. That was as a matter of fact, when that Excursion got wrecked, I had a deal going for being able to. I was buying a whole truck just to get an engine, and so I ended up not doing that. So this is it's registered as a 1976. However, whether that's if it's a 76, it's a way early 76, because this is a 75. I'm here to tell you, and those of you that know these trucks will be able to back me up on this. So 1975, 76, as far as these trucks go, same generation, just a cutoff. And the major differences between 75 and 76 is that in 75, they had four-wheel drum brakes, which this has. Also in 75, they had a Kingpin Dana 60 front end. And that's what's interesting about these trucks, too. All of the trucks of this era, if they were four-wheel drive and they were single cab or super cab, they had Dana 44s up front. I believe it was 44. And it was only the crew cabs that had Dana 60s. And this one's a Dana 60, and it's a Kingpin Dana 60. And it was the year after this that they went to a ball joint. So this is essentially, you're looking at a 1975, although registration says 76. Big deal. The only thing for sure that I'm using off of this for sure is the cab, obviously, and the rear doors. So in order to be able to get that entire interior to fit inside this truck, it currently won't do so. And if you know about these trucks, that super cab should have a back seat in it, which is actually sitting against the wall right there. The seat is out of this thing currently, but you know, the little fold down seat like that is right there is essentially what fits in these trucks, and they're not much different from a super cab other than they got doors back here. But you'll see that this back seat is not real big, and there's not a lot of room between that and that. And if you do the measurements on it and everything, and you tried to cram this in there, starting at the dash and coming back here, and you tried to put this row of seats in, basically what you'd get is these seats would almost be touching, like that console up there and these seats right here. So you cannot fit this seat in there. If you look at some of the videos of these body swaps, that's pretty much what they do, is they end up using, you know, that part of the interior of the newer vehicle, and then they always end up leaving that small seat in the back. And that's not my plan. So there's another guy out there, I don't know how this stuff works on YouTube. There's another guy that's got a bunch of videos out there that does conversions. He's doing a personal one. He does them professionally. He's doing a personal one for himself, and it's one of these. And I want to say his is bump side, I do believe. And he tried to buy that truck for a long time, and he finally got it, and he's got the cab off at last I looked. And he's got the same kind of dilemma that I have, is that he's kind of swapping crew cab for crew cab, and he needs to stretch the cab about 10 inches. There's one video out there in particular of a bump side, really sick truck, beautiful truck, talented guy. And he did basically what I'm doing. He talks about putting a full door on the back. I need to stretch this cab. And it's essentially 10-ish, 11-ish inches. So the cab needs to come out. And then that way, everything fits. Because what's going to happen is, this thing gets completely cut out. The only thing that's going to be left is the floor. And of course, you know, I can disregard all of the floor back beyond this point. That whole back, the floor is going to be gone and everything. But it's going to be the running, driving chassis. And it'll still have the floor in it. The seats will still be attached and everything. The firewall will still be from this vehicle, and the dash. You obviously cut that out of this one. The bottom, the whole floor will be cut out of this one. The firewall will be cut out of this one, and the dash will be cut out of this one. And then this basically gets dropped over the top of that one, and you basically kind of weld it together. Sounds real simple. It's not that easy, obviously. This is where the crazy part comes in. So this is going to get cut. Somewhere here, this is going to get cut. Just kind of take the doors out of the equation right now, unbolt those things, get them out of here, get the cab in the dimension that you want it to be, and now I've got a hole in the back that I got to fill with a door. Obviously, the front edge of this door is not the same as the front edge of that door. See how round that is from here down? Now, obviously, the back door doesn't have a slanted back A-pillar. It's got a straight up pillar, right? So you got to use this part of the door at a bare minimum. If you used a whole door back there, this would get cut off. That would get welded, you know, in here, this front section of it, that corner. So, but this is real curvy, and that's a lot straighter over there, and I don't want that curve. I would have to change the profile of the B-pillar to do that. And that's not really what I want to do. My thought is, and I've been discouraged from doing this by my best friend, who's a brilliant guy, and he's good at this kind of stuff, and he's like, no, get a full door, make that work with the doors and stuff like that, because in order to make this bigger, I've got a couple other single cabs available to me. Just like you watch a video of the guy that's already done this, and he put the back of a single cab on there. So you basically cut this somewhere in here, you cut the back off of a single cab plus like an additional 10 or whatever inches you need, and weld it back on the back, and then you know, you got the problem of how to get this door longer. Well, my solution is doors are pretty easy to get a hold of. I personally have like 6 of them available to me to work on right now. These are in okay shape. This truck, by the way, is in incredible shape. It's just really beat up, but it's not rusty, and that's amazing. And I bought this truck extremely cheaply. You would hate me, and it was just a couple miles from my house. That's the funny part of the story too. This was meant to be. But back to that door, you're going to have to stretch that door, and so I have a plan, and it's basically going to take me about 3 doors per back door to make doors out of this. One set of doors I can just absolutely get some hammered doors, which that one over on the other side is one of those candidates, because I'm basically going to cut just the whole inside structure out of it to make a full door. But when it comes to that part, I'll kind of explain it, but I definitely have a master plan as to how to do that, and that's the biggest part of this project. Before I can do anything and cut this up, I can continue to drive that. I got a long ways to go before I do that, because I've got to get that cab off there, get that cab stretched, make those doors work and everything. The top of this thing is absolutely crushed in, but it's not rusted. These things are always rusty. The paint is still in these. It's the drip rails that rust and the rocker panels, and this truck is not rusted. It has a couple rust holes in it. This got crushed in, but I'm not using that roof. This was one of their weaknesses. It was just a pretty flat panel, and you see what happens in snow and stuff like that. The top of the Excursion is a ribbed top, and it's way stronger, and so I would have to stretch this longer anyway. I'm going to have a 10-inch gap in here somewhere, so the whole skin is coming off from this cut. Here's your cut line right here. The whole skin is coming off, or here's your cut line right here. The whole skin is coming off the top of this, and it's getting reskinned with the front section of that. So that solves that problem. And then again, as I was kind of alluding to, all the overhead console and stuff like that, that stuff was all meant to play, and this headliner will go in the front section of this headliner. Because all this stuff is already meant to go in there, and it's all plugged into the whole truck and everything. So I just have to incorporate it in there. And I know that, again, making it sound simple, right? But the overall dimension of the truck is going to obviously change, because I'm going to add 10 inches to the cab. But my plan is, if you look at a more modern truck, and if you think about it, I'm modernizing this truck and making it a modern daily driver. If you look at crew cabs of today, that space right there is not nearly that. So I can obviously shorten this bed, and it's already a short bed. It's going to be a shorter bed, because I'm not probably going to take the whole 10 inches out that I added here, but I'm going to take some out, and my guess is like 6 inches, but I'm going to do a scale profile of the truck and play with those dimensions and see what it looks like, because my whole idea is, the whole theme of this truck is I'm modernizing this truck and making it a daily driver, right? And so think about this. Why is this a hen's tooth? Why was this so hard to find? Why are they so expensive? Find a cab out there, just that cab, and they'll be asking 10 grand for it. It's unbelievable. So there's a whole lot of this truck that's going to be left, and somebody's going to want it. And, again, you guys are going to hate me, but that cab's coming off of there. I'm using some of this truck, but most of it's just so beat up. And there's a rust hole in that fender. There's a rust hole in the floor on that side. And there's a rust hole in front of that door on that side. But that's the only rust on this whole truck. The cab corners in this thing, all of the cab corners are all solid. I mean, they're beat up, but there's no rust in these things, and the rockers are just as solid gets. I've got photographs of them from the first time I had it. I just brought this thing in here yesterday to get this process started. So this has been in here before. It has been up on the lift before. I've got pictures of the rockers and everything, and unbelievable as beat up as this truck is and everything. Here's the history of the truck. This is a local truck, and it has been its whole life. It was purchased in northern Idaho. It was purchased and lived its whole life here in northern Idaho. Belonged to a gentleman that was owned a logging business, and his son still is a logger and has the business. And his son had this truck. His father's no longer around, but I knew of his father years ago, and there's a lot of people in my small town here that know this truck. Which is kind of cool, that this thing is staying here. And has a lot to do with, I bought this truck from someone I know, from someone who's a car guy, from someone who knows what this truck is worth. And I, again, won't tell you what I paid for this truck. But all I can say is thank you, Kenny. He knows what I'm doing to the truck, and he's all about it, man. And so Without his help, I would not have the budget that I have to really do what I want to do to this truck, because my plan is that this is going to be a beautiful truck. And again, why is this a hen's tooth? Think about it. If you're old enough, and I am, going back to when this truck was new, nobody had that as a personal truck. Nobody drove a crew cab as their personal truck. These were work trucks. And that has completely changed in this day and age. Think about it. Every pickup of everybody that just about is a crew cab, unless it's a work truck. Then it's a single cab or a super cab. I got a super cab over there. That's a work truck, man. And so that's what makes them rare. They didn't make a whole lot of them. They made even fewer of them in four-wheel drive, and this is a bona fide highboy right here. It's got a FE. It's a 360. It runs. Actually, I've got a video of it running. Now, there's a problem. Obviously, this thing has been parked for 25 years. Was last registered in 1999. And when I got it, it was in a field, and it was sitting all the way up to its axles in the dirt, in grass, and had been sitting there for 25 years. I replaced it. Didn't have any spark. I replaced this unit, the ignition unit, and it fired up a couple times, and it fried that unit again. So there's something wrong with that, and I'm over it. You can see I've got my fuel can here for my fuel source with a little electric fuel pump on it and everything. And it doesn't have spark again now, and I don't care. And when you hit the starter, I can just tell you, this truck says it's got like 90-some thousand on it, and I don't think it's 190-something. It lived up here in northern Idaho, and it logged 90, what does it say? Where is it? 90-something thousand. It's right there. Anyway, I don't have enough light. But I know it's not 190,000. And, but even, now that it doesn't have spark and you hit the starter, it's got a gallop. So it does not have even compression on all the cylinders. It's a worn out engine. I already know that. But, this whole thing is, again, it's an original highboy. And so I'm not going to use the chassis of it or anything. I'm not going to use the engine. I'm not going to use, they have a divorce transfer case. It's there. It's all original. And so this is going to, I'm going to sell this stuff, but here's the kicker. That Dana 60 we already talked about, that's getting used too, because that back here, this is a 93 and it's been in continuous service. But it's got the TTB front suspension, and I've been wanting to straight axle this thing for a long time, and why would I not rebuild that and put that in here? I literally bought this whole vehicle for what I could buy that front axle, not rebuilt, just the way that it is. So for the price that I paid for the truck, I can look at it like it's the axle and I got a free truck. So this was my father-in-law's truck. He ordered this truck. He had a business. He had a ready-mix concrete business, and he ordered this truck. And I want to say he got two other ones that were basically identical to it back in '93. '93 is so this is a 7.3 IDI. It's turbo, which 93 was the first year that was optional, and so this one is turbocharged. It's all original. It's been running the whole time. This is a really neat truck because when he first bought this truck, he had a gear vendor overdrive. So it's a manual, and he had a gear vendor overdrive installed in it right from the get-go, and so that makes it's really set up nice for towing that way. And then eventually, after he'd had it for a while, he had an auto leveling air suspension put on the back. So it's just, there's no leaf spring on it anymore. It's just a trailing arm with bags behind the axle back here, and it's auto leveling. So it has a tank and a compressor in this end over here, and then you can see the mechanisms there, the lever mechanisms that causes this thing to auto level there, and it's, it's attached to valves. And so I have a pellet stove, and I buy the pellet stove pellets at a ton at a time, and they're on a pallet, and I have them slide the pallet. I have pictures of this truck just sitting level with a ton of pellets sitting in the back, just far enough forward that the gate can close. So most of that ton is behind the rear axle, and when they set it in there, the truck goes down and immediately comes back up to level, and then it rides great with a ton in it. So actually really cool truck. And then I put the snowplow on it. There's the snowplow there back in that kind of mess. Snowplow's on a little dolly, and I could back the truck up and put the snowplow on in like under a minute. It's old school, but it's perfect. I mean, it matches the truck. The truck's old school, right? So that's a cool vehicle. And then the last thing I'll show you, another project going on right now. This thing is really cool. This is a 1945 Willys Jeep. It is MB. Obviously, anybody that knows anything about this, so that was your giveaway right there that it's not military, right? But it's registered as an MB. I mean, by the time a vehicle is this old, what's left of it, the originality of it, who knows? It has the front end that it should have. It doesn't have the rear end that it should have. But it also, when I bought it, didn't have the motor it should have. It had a Buick 225 odd fire V6 in it. Neat little motor. And I've been driving it. I've had this for about 5 years. And I just pulled the motor, tranny, and everything. This is the first time that since I've owned this Jeep that it doesn't leak anything. So I've done a lot of work to it. Phase 1 is pretty much done, or is going to be done here pretty soon. And that is just getting it mechanically good. So when I bought it, the thing didn't have any brakes. Still has a single pop master cylinder and drum rear brakes on it right now. I converted the fronts to disc. Was easy to do. Used the parts from 3 different cars. Works good. Even with you got that reserve pressure valve that's in a drum brake master cylinder, but you can operate disc brakes off a drum brake master cylinder. You just can't do it the other way, and it works. It actually works really good. This thing stops on a dime, but you can feel that reserve pressure that's on there when you take your foot off brake, and it still kind of sticks there, but it eventually releases, and so that probably wears on your pads just a little bit more and everything. But for the time being, it works really good. Engine is over in the machine shop, which you'll end up seeing in the machine shops. Like as the crow flies, the machine shop is kind of out that window over there, just maybe like less than 1,000 yards. It takes about a 2-mile drive to get there. And where we live, there's only 2 houses between here and there, and they're on the same property. They're the same family. But I have a full-on machine shop over there. The engine for that is over in the machine shop. I ended up blowing that motor up. I had just done the top end. And so the heads are all done and everything, except for we're going to put different valve springs in it because of putting a different cam in it now and stuff. But other than that, we just got to blow those heads apart and put them back together. But those are done. But I ended up, I had a really badly scored cylinder wall on number 4, and I had 0 compression there. So that's over in the machine shop. Should be the machining should be done here pretty soon, and that thing's going to go back together. It's fall, and my plan is that's my daily driver in the summertime, so I want to have that back together. It's a really cool. Here's the transmission to it. It's really neat. There's a Warren overdrive on it. So this is the rebuild kit for the original transmission, 3-speed. It's got the Warren overdrive on it. If you're not familiar with that, it basically gives a low and a high range for each of the 3 gears. So it basically kind of, if you split shifted, it's like a 6-speed. So that's cool. That was already on there when I bought it. Transfer case works good, but leaks. Output shafts need to be replaced, and of course all the seals and everything need to be replaced. So this thing's out here to get rebuilt. The main thing about the transmission is the synchros were completely gone, and the reason for that, if you know anything about these transmissions, I mean, this is 1945, right? And everything today has hypoid cut gears in it, and all of the gear oils are hypoid gear oils, which is fine, except for modern transmissions also don't have any yellow metals in them, and the synchros for these are yellow metals, and those hypoid gear oils attack the yellow metals. By the time I bought this vehicle, the synchros were absolutely shot in this thing. So the proper thing to do is to run straight 90 weight mineral oil in these things, and I happen to be able to source some because if you look on the internet, it is ridiculously expensive. And there's a distributor here in my little town that had 5 gallons of it, and I think I paid like $90 for it or something like that, which they want that much for like less than a gallon on the internet, I think. So that's part of that project over there. This is the main project right here. I think that's basically the overview. I hope I didn't bore you to absolute tears, but kind of stay posted for what we're going to do. So my goal on this right now is I've got it in here, and the project's getting started, and the very first thing to do is to get that bed, which I cleaned yesterday, and it was like incredible. But even the bed of this thing is in good shape. I mean, this bed is not rusted through at all. It's incredible. And there was a foot of pine needles and everything in here that I shoveled out yesterday, not to mention all the garbage and everything that was in here, dating back to at least probably the 1980s. So I'm going to get the bed off of here. I'm going to strip out the entire interior of this thing, get all the windows out of it and everything like that, and then get that cab taken off there, and then we'll talk. So again, thanks for watching, and stay tuned.